The second booster was released on May 25th, 1999 into Cardos machines. Now the first booster was pack filler, to say the least. Filled with nothing of note unless you count the first actual reprints of the entire franchise. Booster 2, meanwhile, is a step up in regards to that. It may not have the power of either the first two volumes or the starter box, but there are things that could have been good upgrades to your deck. Also, victims of the rule changes begin to show up here, so let's dive into the second booster. So let's go back to those rule changes. The adoption of Master Rule as the way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Changed how monsters were treated. While some early decks may have made use of the likes of Blue Eyes because it's still the strongest monsters, the beatdown meta centered around Cursed Dragons early on and the strongest normal summonable monsters. And I don't think the card designers were prepared for that change because first up we have Mabarrel. Or Devil Cannon. The first in a long line of sadly kind of weak tribute monsters. This feels like it was made with the junior rules in mind. This is indeed more powerful than most normal summons at the time. But as you will see, that is going to get passed up very, very quickly in the coming sets. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of 5, sometimes 6 level tributes that are like this, even with Devil Cannon's eyeballs that can be seen when shot from his snout. And that carries over to the next few monsters, starting with Ansatsu. Which, to be honest, as a kid, this was always one of the cooler cards. I mean, it's one of the more simple designs of a ninja with a kunai who draws you in the darkness to assassinate you. That's honestly pretty cool and stunning. If you didn't have a Cursed Dragons, you would never summon this one because it's a lot better. Okay, I guess you didn't nab Cursed Dragons. This was fine when you combined this with either a card in this set or the Legendary Sword, but it would only be able to match it. Hey look, it's time for another monster with a 50 in the attack stat. That's so I hope you're ready for math. When you or your opponent summons the giant mech soldier which, if you wanted defense, Mystical Elf and Lady of the Harp exist and are 100 points more so they can match Cursed Dragon despite the warrior's powerful axe that can split the earth when it comes down on you. Also, as a person who plays Fire Emblem, I call BS on that because unless you have an Axe Reaver that reverses the weapon triangle on axes to beat swords, unless they have a... yeah. And this doesn't really look like an Axe Reaver to me. Next up is this monstrosity that lurks in the darkest corners of the Seven Sea called a cactus, or Akihiron, that lurks beneath the waters. Likely to hide its rather disturbing appearance in those ears. Yeah, do you think those ears are just, like, able to pick on about absolutely everything a person can hear or see? Maybe that's also why it hides under water so it can't hear that much with the dampened water. Rogue Doll, or Holy Doll in the OCG, was the next strongest normal summon for players, power creeping Arabi by just 100 points by controlling Mystic or Holy power. Its attacks are more powerful from the dark, or against Dark Force, which I don't get the change since Yami is technically good to use with this monster, though it's more a reference to the original manga and its real weird rules, since because it was a white magic type, it was more effective against Fiend type monsters. But it is effectively a straight upgrade to whatever low attack monster you had at this point. Before Watt Kid was renamed from Osilo Hero Number 2, this was his older brother, an unidentifiable warrior from another dimension. You could tell he's from another dimension because he's yet another monster with a 5 in the 10 spot. Also, I guess it doesn't have electrical powers as its alternate universe self has. As I guess it just punches really, really hard to defeat enemies. Woodjoker is yet another tree monster with more defense than it probably should have, as it dexterously avoids attacks and then proceeds to attack with its Kama, or Sight for us Americans. I really don't get why we're using trees as defenders, unless these trees are made up of fossilized wood. Seriously, does the sword just reverberate out the wood when it's slashed? Behold, the one who hunts souls, this headless, horse, mad fish creation. Such a weird combination of things to combine into one. That swings its sword to collect souls. Again, souls in this universe must really suck, but all it takes is just this guy swinging the sword because it is not a particularly good tack stat. And again, part fish, you already had clearly a headless horseman and centaur thing going on, and someone just thought, man, we just want one more thing to add into this chimera creation to make it like the coolest monster ever. Arguably the most simple named monster in this set, and potentially the entirety of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is Bat. Yeah, no wind bat, mechanical bat, since it's technically mechanically made, it's just Bat, blasting you with wing blasts. It's honestly quite impressive at how simple and boring its design is as a monster. It's honestly memorable in that way. Guess I may have been hard on the one who hunts on souls, because you could tell the artist was putting their all into that weird, bizarre mishmash of creatures where this is just there. Hey, if Fairy Witch or Angel Witch can forego their destiny of becoming either a fairy or angel to instead follow the path of a witch, we all can truly be whatever we want to be. Or maybe they just chose to be both the angel and witch, or fairy witch. Ugh, God. Buku is a book of hands, filled with a wealth of magical knowledge that is probably more utility-based rather than attack-based based on its stats. Yeah, we're gonna get out of this soon enough, hopefully. Behold, Friendship Incarnate. In the TCG, it's Shining Friendship, but in the OCG, it's just Friendship. Can you guess the user of this monster? This little green plushie is capable of befriending any monster during a duel. But if I'm being honest, this was okay. It has decently high attack for the time. 1300 attack, just 300 under the current best monster, and is common. So if you were just grabbing whatever card you could, this was fine. I more just remember this from Taya's deck in Legacy of the Duelist, where in the campaign she has this fairy equipped deck that can really reach ridiculous levels of strength if you put all of the equipped spells on one monster. Like, obviously there were other choices to do it, but it was just funny to see this little ball of friendship slamming down into every opponent and killing them. For every key, there must be a lock that it goes with, and it is here with the Lock Mace, or Key Mace number 2. The Lock Mace is very much the opposite of his friend. Rather than melting hearts, it turns them into cold, callous things that make people monsters, bringing out the worst in everyone it is around, which, we really would not need right now. Going from the adorable fiend to the terrifying, Nemegrius Light. This masked head that Duelist of the Rose gives him like a full cloak, so he's like sort of a spirit. Anyway, rather than using that snake staff it has in the artwork, it just shoots eye beams. Hey, more lasers. I do like how in the OCG, Corroding Shark is just named as Dead Shark. Like, yeah, you know what is going on here. No need to be kind, though. Again, that is not a thing we can bring up, even though zombie is an archetype for some reason. I mean, it shows that death is a thing by people being dead unless zombies rise from the Shadow Realm. Anyway, our Dead Shark curses, oh, for God's sake. You have a shark. You don't have to give him some kind of weird powers. It's a shark. You know what happens to people around sharks? They get bit, they get eaten, they get chomped up and chewed around. You don't screw with a shark. Or even if you survive the bite, you're still doomed to death because, zombie. Continuing the trend of zombie animals, we have Bone Mouse, out for vengeance against all of the cats that more or less have terrorized mice for years. Sadly, it's a mouse. The tech doesn't even describe anything cool it can do against mice, like maybe its claws can instigate zombification. No, it's just out for revenge against cats. Please don't hurt it. Okay. Baby T-Rex. Or Little D. This is the superior form of the Tomosaurus. Still quite vicious and... do not make me read this, please. You don't have to... Frisky. Okay. You cannot tell me they knew what they were doing when they wrote this card's name. This was during scripted tools where they were adding in slightly more adult, edgy humor. They knew. I'm not going to utter this, so we're moving on. Wilmy the Red Rabbit, with his skewer-like claws, shears through his opposition. I honestly don't get why the hell this card is implying that it is his claws. I mean, in the art, it looks like his fingers were cut off and replaced with blades, so I guess that's where the TCG was thinking in regards to this card. Maybe that's where they got the skewer idea. Do I get more gloved spike gauntlets since it appears to be wearing some kind of gauntlet? Okay, I'm not seeing how this is supposedly fatter than the Archfiend Marmot. I think they are about the same size, though it's not a Marmot in the OCG, because it is in the TCG, but it's technically not Evil Beaver, it's Evil Rat that chomps into anything it fancies. Just like that. So I'm guessing being on the dark side makes him a lot more powerful than his Archfiend brethren. Anyone who remembers the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime remembers the Winged Dragon Guardian of the Fortress. The first monster that was ever seen hologram form rather than just as a card. Its striking blue color, fireball attack, which technically on the card art, the card is not the main way it attacks, it uses a skydive. But it's technically not the first Guardian of the Fortress. It was his red brother that was the real first Winged Guardian with Wyvern. Capable of generating F1, maybe F2 tornadoes since it's like a 1200 attack monster, so maybe that's its strength. I honestly do like both of these artworks, though. Maybe I'm a little more partial to this red, but the blue one is still more iconic in my opinion. Before becoming the God of the Celestials card game, Bean Soldier was a surprisingly strong plant warrior that attacked with beans and swords. And yeah, for this point, it is about as good as you can get for the time. It was a cannon level of attacker. The hard to siege use. Does he throw them onto the ground with some kind of fertilizer and it punctures the opponents, or is it a defense mechanism making an impenetrable wall of ivy? The cousin of the dark plant's long-lost forgotten brother, the flower blooming in the abyss, or just abyss flower, is a super rare flower rarely seen since it grows in, well, the abyss. Unless, of course, there is a reason you want to go out to find this flower. Maybe that's the tech. Monsters come looking for it, and if they are too weak, they die of starvation. Joining the ranks of monsters ousting the old, and quite literally since it's a blood-sucking monster, Giant Flea or Blood-Sucking Flea. Okay, so it mentions sucking blood in the text in the TCG version, but it can't use blood-sucking in the actual name. Anyway, another high-power monster for the time that sucks the enemy's blood. And it really doesn't care because, you know, fleas. Oh, for God's sake, you really had to change the name on this one? The joke was right there in the original. In section. Saw? Cut stuff? No, let's go with Alien section. Alien section? There's no real joke here unless I'm missing it. It was the one thing it had beside being another monster with an odd attack number. It literally had nothing besides the joke. Okay, so this is one of those monsters that makes more sense in Japan than in the TCG with WoW Warrior. Another odd duck of a monster that is not a fishman, but a fish with arms and legs and sharp teeth in the TCG. It is technically a fishman beast in the OCG as it grew limbs. Anyway, why is it called WoW Warrior? Well, in the OCG it has the name of Yo-Yo Senshi, because Yo in Japan can either be fish or surprise, and they couldn't change the name to, like, just Fish Warrior for some reason. White. Dolphin. It's probably also part unicorn because it has a horn in its head, but instead of stabbing people with said horn, it uses it to make tidal waves. Seriously, two fish monsters that don't do, like, the fish thing. Dolphins are also something you don't want to screw with. Okay, so I know I said Bat was kind of unimpressive, but Zarygon might win the award for least interesting monster in the set. I mean, Bat at least had the distinction of just how plain it was. What do you think Zarygon is? If your answer was crayfish monster with sharp claws, congratulations for looking up the wiki or watching ahead in this video, but, yeah, I honestly don't know what to say, because, you know, at least Bolt Penguin has an interesting design with those electric whips that paralyze and proceeds to strangle you. That is an interesting design that's going to stick with you. I bet you've already forgotten what Zarygun looks like. In fact, let's continue to beat on the blandness of Zarygun with the next monster, Stone Ghost. This tiki-looking monster that is also slightly okay. Guess I would have called it more a volcano ghost that explodes with boulders, so maybe an eruption. Like one of the few things that makes it worth talking about over Zarygun. And the last monster I said is literally the heads of Easter Island. They shoot lasers from those glorious lips. Don't know why they didn't do eyes, but I guess we already have enough eye-based monsters. Also, I guess they're more or less are not that strong. You'd think it'd be stronger with like the multiple statues shooting lasers at you all together. Anyway, we only really have spells to talk about. We have new equipped cards that are based on attribute rather than type. Invigoration or Awakening for Earth monsters. Sword of Dark Destruction or Destruction Divine Sword of Darkness for Darks. Outslight for, well, you know, Gust Fan for Wind, Burning Spear for Fire, and the oddest out of all of them, Steel Shell for Water. It's odd because of what these equipped cards do. Instead of the standard 300 attack boost, you get 400 attack at the expense of 200 defense points. So why would the Steel Shell decrease defense? Shouldn't it, like, increase defense? Everyone knows steel is superior to iron unless it acclimates electricity a lot easier. Anyway, if you're wanting to use equipped cards, these were better than the initial equipped cards just because of the additional attack points really weren't equipping to defenders unless you really wanted to attack them. Dark Piercing Light is basically swords that revealing light without the stunning effect, revealing face-down monsters. At this point, it would help to ensure you weren't duped by a 2k wall, but if you had swords, you weren't playing this. Following that up, we have the Inexperienced Spy, Yu-Gi-Oh's first piece of hand knowledge, allowing you to look at one card in your opponent's hand. Giving knowledge about what might be played the coming turn is interesting and makes you think about what might be set, but it's kind of a rather humble beginning for something that would become very, very aggravating for some players. And to close it out, stronger forms of Burn and Heal in the form of Ukazi and Soul the Pure, or Angel's Lifeblood. Can you tell what was changed between artworks? But that was Booster 2. Definitely an improvement over the first booster, which felt more filler than anything else. But this set would be immediately overshadowed because 2 days after this set hit Cardos machines, Volume 3 was hitting shelves with a major change of the game. Again.